Yes. Since I'm backstage.
When I was hungry, you fed me. I was thirsty, gave me a drink. Visited me through sickness and imprisonment. You always told me I'll never be a stranger. Community church Indy, where the gospel is shared and lives are
All right, Facebook family, it's yours truly, Antonio Lipscomb. I am pastor of Community Church Indy, and I'm excited about bringing another broadcast to you. And backstage, we have Ryan Mayers, and we're doing a live check. So you all just be with us, and we'll be with you in a moment to get started. We're excited about this show. So the reality of it is, once we come together, we'll make all the difference in the world. And so if you want to be a part of this show, you simply call 317-239-1310 and you'll be a part of the show. So we're in the backstages right now. About 15 seconds and we'll be on the air. And we can hear Ryan too, right? On StreamYard?
Good to see everybody.
Great. Okay, now you can take him off camera right now. There we go.
And you're live.
Okay. All right. Welcome. Another wonderful broadcast. I am your host, Antonio Lipscomb, pastor of Community Church Indy. And if you'd like to be a part of this broadcast, you can simply go 317-239-1310 and you can get phone calls in. So good to have our prosecutor, Ryan Mayers. I almost elevated you, sir, into the presidency.
Hey, you're the president, not me. We went through all your titles the other day. You're president of a couple organizations, so I'm happy just being prosecutor.
Well, we appreciate you coming on to our show. Now, I want to share something with you, Mr. Prosecutor. Your heart in the words that you said was really felt. You made an impact on our church and our listeners on yesterday as you came to our church and you was a part of our National Political Network gathering. And I tell you, the words that you spoke was just, I tell you what, people are still talking about what you have stated. And I thought it would only be fair to make sure that you had another opportunity to be able to share in what you have stated. And before you get going, I just want to do a quick sound check. TJ, do we still have the station with us on StreamYard? I just want to check with my producer to make sure everything is heard. We do still have the station with us, am I correct? Okay, great. Okay, now let me share this with you, Mr. Mears. When I was younger, I remember, just to be honest, I come from a single parent home, very troubled area. And there was this way that the city dealt with our community, particularly our zip code. They called it the Gang Task Force. And it was based upon if you came from a single parent household, depending on your age and whatnot. It was kind of funny because both my brothers, particularly my older brother, he was LGBTQ or whatever letters you want to use. But they had him down as a gang member. And it was just primarily because of data. And so growing up with that type of troubled environment and looked upon as a criminal before we even committed a crime. We was put in a gang task force before they even knew that we were in a gang, or if or whatever. Um, my behavior as a youth was to just kind of already fulfill prophecy of going down that road. And so I started getting into trouble because it seemed like when I got into trouble, that's when I got the attention. Like if I was doing okay, no one really paid attention to me if I'm quiet or whatever. But the minute I start doing something stupid, then that's when everybody, oh, you okay? Well, no, I've been quiet here trying to get help, but now that I'm acting up, okay. But I want to give you a clear picture of what I've been through. Um, I was actually in the juvenile center, and two Caucasian young men had created a bat with nails in it, and they made the guard go into a room and took the keys. And so when I seen that, my first thought, hey, I want to go home too. Let me go. And so I'm literally running down 25th Street and got picked up 2 blocks from 25th Street. And this was back when Michael Taylor, not too terribly around those years when that happened. There was a white officer, there was a black officer. They put me in the back of that police car. And what they told me was, they said, whatever happens to the white two young men that are running in this neighborhood is going to be the same thing that happened to you. They said, we've taken plenty of y'all to the cornfields and y'all never have returned, is what they told me. And then I was put in the real Marion County jail. I was probably 13 or 14 years old. I was a little tall, skinny, scrawny kid. And they was like, those old, those men there, and like, we're not gonna mess with you. Just keep your mouth shut or whatever. But I was pretty much at the mercy of those inmates. No guard could have saved me. Whatever they wanted to do to me at that time, they could have done. But just by the grace of God, I've done 30 days in the real county jail, 13 to 14 years old. The reason why I share this with you is because I tell you, to hear an officer say that they're going to harm me, that really stuck with me all my life. Because when I was coming up, you had officers that would say, hey, I'm friendly. I'm officer friendly. And like, we used to play with those big Tonka trucks. Either you a policeman or you a firefighter. Those were like our heroes, And to hear officers say that we will, take you to the cornfields and kill you. And mind you, it wasn't just, two Klansmen riding, in the car. This was a white and black officers. And it just seemed like the black officer was kind of trying to prove, because he was doing the majority of the talking. So it's like he was trying to prove himself to the other officer of his, being down or whatever they were doing. And so I just waited till I came on air just to share this story with you in relation to your sentiment of saying, hey, our criminal justice system is broken, And I'm not saying every officer is bad. I would never say that. I think we got some great officers. We got some officers to the point that I would never want to be an officer, is what I'm trying to say, because that's just a hard job. And I appreciate our first responders. I appreciate the officers and things that they do. However, this evil practice, of killing brown and black boys, fortunately or unfortunately, however you want to look at it, you start seeing national news of these young men just like being killed by officers, And so a lot of times as an African American male, I'm just thinking, like, man, when anybody in any power position, like, hear our cry and try to start figuring out, okay, how do you practice law the right way? How do you, of course, I was doing bad things. I'm not going to try to cover that up. I was terrible as a kid. I don't have a dope felony background or like that, but I was that hard-headed young man that you would definitely send over to the YMCA or boys club or whatever you said. I was that kid. Um, but I don't think I would deserve to be killed by an officer, because of stupidity. Um, and so I just want to hear your thoughts on that.
Well, first of all, thank you for sharing that story. And I think the thing that's really interesting is I'm out in the community is I hear so many different stories from so many different people about interactions that they've had with law enforcement. And I think it really goes to that issue that we see so much in our community today, which is that issue of trust. How do we build that issue of trust between law enforcement and the community as a whole, and in particular communities of color? Who have had a long history of seeing systematic issues of discrimination and seeing that not all the time were maybe their friends or relatives always treated fairly or similar to how other races were treated in the criminal justice system. And so I think it's really important that everybody focus on what they can do to try to help communities today. And so that's why at the prosecutor's office, we spend so much time devoting resources to help getting people get their driver's licenses reinstated. I meet too many good people in the community who have their driver's license suspended, not because they're bad drivers or because they're bad people, but because they got pulled over for failure to stop. They got pulled over for failing to signal, and they don't have the $160 to pay their ticket. And in Indiana, if you can't pay your ticket, your license is automatically suspended. And we now criminalize that person every time they drive to work, every time they pick up their kids from school, when they go to the doctor, when they go to the church, when they go to the grocery store. And we have no impact on public safety, but we've criminalized that person every time they drive. That doesn't make our community safer, and it instills this sense of distrust between people in the system. And I think if you look at who gets pulled over, it's no secret that disproportionately people of color are pulled over by law enforcement. And so that's why it's important for us to set aside those tickets, help people get B&B reinstatement fees waived, because I want those people driving on the streets legally. I want them driving to work. I want them picking up their kids and not have to worry about getting pulled over. I think the second part of that is we also need to recognize that there's a lot of people in our community who are trying to do right, who are trying to do well, but maybe they don't have that opportunity to do that because they have a prior felony in their background. When they apply for a job or when they try to find a place to live, oftentimes that felony is held against them. I talked to a guy in our community who said, I was okay with doing the time. I just didn't know this was going to follow me around for the rest of my life. And so when we hear things like that, I think it's important for us at our second chance fairs to help people get those felonies taken off their record and get them expunged so they can find that employment, so they're not underemployed. And so more importantly, they can also find housing, because that's the first step to stability for a lot of individuals who are coming out of the criminal justice system. Where can we find a place for them to live? And I think the prosecutor's office needs to be at the forefront of trying to help people so we don't see them again in our criminal justice system. And we as a system have to be willing to recognize that the system didn't always get it right. That's why we made the decision to no longer prosecute low-level marijuana cases. The simple possession of marijuana cases, it didn't have an impact on public safety. We're wasting a ton of time, energy, and resources, and it disproportionately impacted people of color. If you look at people who use drugs, marijuana usage rates among white people and black people, and then you look at who ends up in the criminal justice system, it was pretty clear that there was a disproportionate impact on people of color. And so when we see these things and we don't act, again, we're just sowing more and more distrust of this criminal justice system, which is why we want to be more proactive addressing those issues. And I think the challenges that you just outlaid are some of the things that you personally experienced growing up. Those are real issues of mistrust that exist in communities. And so we have to be in a position to demonstrate these are the things that we're willing to do to try to help.
Yeah, I hear you, prosecutor. I think that is something that we really appreciate And I think oftentimes a lot of people are trying to figure out how to solve problems. Like they have these issues, right? And they're like, okay, how can I deal with these issues? And not to say that some of these issues can't be dealt with, um, but the trust is what I was mainly getting at, because we did talk about, and this, of course, we had a very open, candid conversation about, law enforcement and the trust that goes along with, protecting and serving. Like you have some officers, they do a great job at trying to make sure they protect and serve, and they do their job in a way that, is acceptable. But then you have some that are not necessarily there to protect and serve. They're there to, kind of prove a point. And I'm quite sure that makes your job hard, because you want to be fair with everyone, and man, how do you deal with that? You know what I mean?
Well, and I think it's part of a larger conversation with about how we evaluate police officers and what does that look like.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think we need to get more input from the community in terms of how are we going to define someone as a good police officer. I think before the traditional metric was, well, how many arrests have you made? That doesn't always tell us that someone's always following the law and following the Constitution and respecting people's rights and not using excessive force. And so I think one of the things that is really going to be important in Indianapolis moving forward is how are we going to decide who's a good officer and how are we going to decide maybe who's an officer that needs to improve. And I think that has community input, but it also has to relate back to better data. When we talk about someone, a police officer, and we look and, hey, if they've pulled over 100 people and 97 of them are Black, that should tell us something about the officer. And that's the type of things that we need to track and be taking a look at to make sure that our officers are, getting reliable data, but then also the community is in a position to say, now, hold on a second. There's quite a few other people maybe that you could have pulled over at some point in time. Why is this disproportionately African-American drivers? And when we talk about who's getting stopped on the street and who ends up getting a pat down, what do those numbers look like about the officer? And so, that's something that's really important for us is to make sure that we have good data so we're in a better position to evaluate our police department. And it'll also tell us what our police department's doing. In terms of who's being the most active, what areas are they being active in, and what kind of results does that activity produce, or is it operating, is it managed in a way that's fair to every citizen here in Marion County?
Well, I think that's good, that you have taken this position. I want to say very clearly that, of course, you're running for political office, right, to maintain the work that you're doing. And I did mention to you, because we're giving you this airtime, that I will have to also, if the person running against you, that I have to extend to them the same opportunity. That's amazing, because I'm paying for this, but I still gotta, sort of like being made to serve dinner to somebody
Right.
that you didn't invite over to your house, technically. You know what I mean? So
Exactly.
but if I have to bring somebody else on, I will, because it's, to protect the station and protect myself, I'm mandated to do so. But with that in mind, I just want to let our radio listening audience know, and our community know, every person to watch this show, if you have any level of way of following us, and if we have any level of influence in your life in relations to politics, this is my first endorsement, is Ryan Maris, hands down. There's nobody that I think personally, and I shared this with my congregation, that thinks like he thinks, and has proven himself. If Ryan, if our prosecutor Ryan says he can help you, he's gonna help you. If he cannot help you, he can defer you over to somebody who maybe can help you, or he'll just simply tell you he can't help you. That's level of honesty is what we need in our they call them politicians. But I don't really see him as a politician. I see him as a person that genuinely care about the community and not afraid to speak up. Um, I just got to ask you this, man. You know, there's there's not too many people that will be brave enough just to speak up and share the truth. I mean, where do you get this core belief of morality for all? Where does that come from?
Well, I think what you said earlier is absolutely correct. I'm not a politician. I never thought I would be the elected prosecutor. I got into public service because I wanted to help people and I wanted to make a difference in my community. And I feel like if you're fortunate enough to get one of these positions, you need to spend every waking moment thinking, what can I do to help, and what can I do to make a difference? Because you don't have these jobs forever, and I think you have to make the most of that opportunity. And I want to redefine expectations for people in this community in terms of what they should expect from a prosecutor's office. I think they should expect a prosecutor's office not only to hold violent criminals accountable and prosecute murder cases, which is what I did when I was a deputy prosecutor, but I think they should also expect, hey, what are you going to do to try to help people get a job? What are you going to do to try to keep young people out of the juvenile justice system, knowing that it does not produce good results for kids? One of the things that we started was that partnership with the Boys and Girls Club that you referenced earlier, where on low-level nonviolent offenses, I don't want to spend money prosecuting those kids. I want to spend money helping those kids. And so I'll pay for them to go to the Boys and Girls Club all day long, as opposed to doing a traditional prosecution, because what I want for those kids is, let's give those kids an opportunity. And sometimes the barrier for them going to the Boys and Girls Club is $25 a month. And so that's one of the things that I believe that we can do to hopefully help put us in a better position to make Indianapolis not only safer, but more fair. And let's give those kids that opportunity. When you give young people a legitimate opportunity, they're going to do well. And the Boys and Girls Club provides a positive environment where kids can go, they can be safe, they can access the internet, they can learn about not only themselves, but other people, develop all these different skills. That's way better than sending them to a probation appointment. And I think the same thing's true for adults, is what can we do to try to help people get jobs? What can we do to try to help people get careers? I know one of the things that you're passionate about is working with people who are in the Marion County Jail and help develop trades for them. So when they come out, they have a skill, so they have a place to go, so they can get a job. We have a tremendous labor shortage right now in those industries. Let's help people get those jobs, and let's use that time to uplift people and put them in a better position than what they otherwise would have been in. And I think those are really important things that we can do to hopefully level the playing field here a little bit, and hopefully give people an opportunity for success.
Yeah, I totally agree with that, Ryan. What I'm blown away with is the level of service that you are looking to do with this city from that position. And what I would love to see is more reentry programs adopting the model that you are setting up. Because really, I think that the reentry services or service providers should really be a part of what you're doing, if not being the lead agency on carrying out these resources. But I do want to give a shout out to my sheriff, Kerry Forstall. That's my dude, and if I can get him on this show, I think I'm gonna try to get him on. He came on with his staff before. That's my dude. He said to say hi to you. He was proud of the work that we did on yesterday. And the sheriff, let me tell you about it, because you mentioned this. We created a nationally accredited skilled trades program, virtual, the first of its kind in the country, to serve in the Marion County Jail 2. And the CCA jail is closed now. We got the large jail now. But I tell you, man, we done it through minority contractors collaboration, because that's where we had the funding at the time. And I'm gonna give a shout out to, like it or not, I do like what the governor did with the next level jobs training. I really appreciate the governor and their workforce cabinet because they were able to help us get funding through the Workforce Ready grant to be able to launch this program. And with our program, even though it was designed primarily for contractors, we were able to serve over 1,000 people in CCA jail. And I'm telling you, this was in the midst of COVID. This was in the midst when certain pods were not able to come out sometime because of COVID. And think of the work restrictions with some of the individuals serving in that jail, and they might have gotten sick and there's a shortage and whatnot. And still through the midst of all of that, shout out to the staff over there, because without the staff at CCA jail, Chief Underwood and others, we wouldn't have been able to do it. But they seen the need and they got involved. And I think Chief Underwood is over there. She works at the Marion County Jail, current Marion County Jail, which I know, a lot of people have complained about the jail. Had a lot of concerns in relations to Marion County Jail. I did not want necessarily that to be an option. I felt like that was a very expensive way to go about crime. However, we have it, and we can make the best of it. I mean, I went over there. There's a lot of room, technology. The staff look like they're not, crowded up, and it just seemed like it's just a better situation for the criminal justice system to be able to be more efficient in handling what's going on. Has the new jail helped your situation at all? I think it's going to help ours, because now we're able to probably do a lot more programs and training through it. But does it help your situation?
I think it will, and I think what you just talked about is the most important thing. Is when we give people an opportunity to have a career, we don't see them come back to the criminal justice system, and so that's why I'm such a big fan of the program that you have and what you're doing, is because you're giving people skills and they're going to use those skills so we don't see them again in the criminal justice system, and that's such a powerful gift to give somebody. And that's why I applaud the effort that you do. And so if we can do more of that in the new jail, I think that's a huge benefit to everybody in our community. It makes our community safer, and it means we're going to reduce recidivism, and we're not going to see those people again because they have jobs. It has been proven in study after study, the number one factor in terms of determining whether or not you're going to continue to be in the criminal justice system is employment. And we have a really great opportunity right now with unemployment being so low, with there being so many job openings right now. There's a lot of opportunity that's out there, but people have to have skills, and people have to have the know-how to do things. And that's one of the things that you provide, which is the best crime reduction tool we could possibly have here in Marion County.
Well, I thank you for saying that, Ryan. Normally we take calls. But what I'm probably going to defer people to is our Facebook chat. So if you have some things you want to chat about, you would simply just have to go on our Facebook page, guys. I'm sorry, the technology right now is not working to get those calls in. I know Larry wanted to call me, but nowadays everybody got to step up with that technology, Mr. Prosecutor, because that's just where we at. We were talking about how COVID has affected our churches and whatnot, and that's a good question. Like, as far as the criminal justice part of prosecuting, did you see like crime go up or go down because of COVID? Was it even keel, or did COVID matter at all? What's your take on that?
Yeah, so we saw a lot of crimes increase. In particular, we saw a significant increase in domestic violence cases because during COVID, everybody was on top of each other and staying with their family. And I think a lot of people were dealing with financial pressures as well. So you had kind of that family tension, and then you added on the financial challenges. So we definitely saw an increase in domestic violence cases. We saw a big decrease in property crime cases, whether it was burglary cases or theft cases, because everybody was at home and everybody knew everybody else was at home. And so you didn't see those types of crimes as occur as much. So we filed fewer cases just because I think there were fewer people out on the street, there were fewer people out on the road. So during the height of the pandemic, we definitely filed less cases. But the one area where we saw an increase was domestic violence cases. I think one of the kind of the hidden challenges of the pandemic has been crimes involving kids. Because so oftentimes we're able to figure out if a child's in an abusive relationship or some sort of physical abuse or sexual abuse is through school, and kids just weren't in school, and you didn't have those neutral adults to be, who didn't have a bias in the situation to evaluate kids and say, hey, why do you have this bruise, or what's going on with this child? Because the kids weren't in school, and then when they got to school, they're masked up and you can't see them and you can't talk to them and interact with them like you used to. And so, I think we definitely saw some of that. And I think that's one of the things that we're still trying to play catch up on is how can we find ways to make sure that those types of crimes, which are typically reported through the schools or extracurricular activities, how can we make sure we still have our arms around that? Because, for kids, they oftentimes aren't in a position to report those crimes themselves.
Yeah, that's true. So I think what we should be talking about, and if I had some people comment in the chat, and we're watching to see if some people comment in the chat and some of the concerns that they might have in relations to what's going on, as far as crime and whatnot. But there's a lot of chatter that I hear from people who may not understand what you do, and it's like they say, okay, well, we want somebody to be tough on crime. And they misunderstand, the fact that you're saying, yes, I'm tough on crime, but I'm not going to be over, tough, if you will, to people who don't deserve the law to be, kind of like weaponized against them. You know what I mean? So can you do me a favor and just kind of, for those naysayers and saying, oh, well, he's soft on crime because he's not going to beat people up with it. Can you just give them a clearer understanding?
Yeah, well, I hope what people say about me is I'm fair. I'd rather be fair than someone saying that I was tough on crime, and I don't even know what that means. I spent my entire career as a prosecutor, and I've prosecuted literally every step in the office. So I've prosecuted everything from low-level misdemeanors all the way up to murder cases, where I was the person in the courtroom doing all the work. And so, I understand the importance of being able to convict someone of murder and the sense that brings to a family who is grief-stricken and dealing with all the different things that come along with being a victim or a victim's family in a crime. We certainly understand that, and we have one of the highest conviction rates in the entire state of Indiana as it relates to homicide cases. But I also understand that you can't incarcerate our way out of this problem. And we can't just arrest everybody. There's more to it than that. And we have to be in a position to help build trust in the community, because it is a sad reality today, but there is not a single non-fatal shooting or homicide that has occurred in this city where somebody somewhere doesn't know what happens. What can we do to get those individuals to come forward with that information so we can solve more of these cases? It's been well established that the homicide clearance rate is not where it needs to be. It can definitely improve, but we have to have the community buy in to that process, which is why the driver's license program is so important, because it builds trust. It's why the marijuana policy is so important, because people see that as, hey, you're not trying to jam me up on something trivial. You're trying to help me out. That builds trust. Helping people get felonies expunged. That helps people get jobs and move forward with their life in a positive way. All of those things are incredibly positive. And what happens is when that person is now a victim on a case or a witness on a case, their last experience with the criminal justice system was positive. And so I think that's going to lead to us to be in a position to solve more of these crimes. But not only is it going to help us solve more of these crimes, it's going to keep more people out of the criminal justice system and involved in criminal activity. You want to know why? Because they're going to have jobs. Because they're not missing work because they got arrested for possession of marijuana. They're going to be at work because they can drive and get there safely without, quote unquote, breaking the law. And they're going to do everything that they can to make sure, and we're going to do everything that we can to make sure that those people also have access to housing, because housing discrimination against felons is a real thing here in Marion County. I mean, those are the things that are important to me, because I know we can't just arrest everybody and say that's the answer and that's the solution to the problems. It doesn't work that way. And we tried that probably, 30, 40 years ago. And really what that was, let's be honest about who got arrested. It happened to be people of color. And, we can't go back to just indiscriminately doing those arrests, trying to try to make those types of convictions. What we need to do is focus on the people who are driving violent crime and the other people that we encounter in the criminal justice system, whether it's addiction issues, mental health issues. What can we do to try to help change their behavior so we don't see them again in the criminal justice system? A lot of times it's getting people into resources for drugs. It's dealing with their mental health issues or helping them develop a skill so they can be gainfully employed. And when they're employed, we don't see them again. That's being smart, and that's treating people more fairly than what was done in the past, when it was just, hey, just lock them all up and throw away the key. That doesn't work either. And the reason so many people don't trust our criminal justice system today is because of that outdated thinking. And they have friends and relatives who were victims of that criminal justice system. That solution to every problem was just lock them up.
Yeah, I mean, it's been a huge problem in this country. I mentioned on yesterday, America has only 5% of the world's population, yet we have 25% of the buildings and jails and prisons in this country, in the land of the free and the home of the brave. We have made too much money on locking people up, and it's sad. I mean, because if we're going to compete with other nations, we have to be willing to start looking at, like you mentioned, which I agree, some job training, because technology is advancing. And how can you learn how to do this work? I mean, whether it be even with your hands as a carpenter, electrician, a plumber, masonry, whatever, those are the skills that pay the bills, might I add. You can make a good living. I don't care if people look down upon the trades. I made a heck of a good living being a tradesperson. So don't let the tie fool you, Ryan. You know what I mean? I wore dirty clothes up until about 42, and then I said, well, now that I've done my time, I wear suits every day. And people think that I can't plumb, but watch out now. I know how to get down. I know what I'm looking at when I see PVC, when I see copper, when I see PEX, I know what I'm looking at. I know the sizes and all of that. So, but the thing about that is just looking at these young people and seeing the need for them to be able to have some of the same access points that I had, or even generations before, because like here's what I like to say. I know that you established a relationship with the Girls and Boys Club, right?
Absolutely.
But I want to publicly say, with our reentry program, our Indiana reentry program, we wanted in our Maji, because I'm a part of 150 local pastors here in this city, faith-based believing pastors who want the best for our community. I want, as I don't know, as far as political season or whatnot, but I really want to see how we can work closer with your office, because we should be the ones that's undergirding this work to make it light and easy for you. Even the fairs, and all that you're doing and caring for people. A lot of these people that you're caring for in our churches. I pointed out a guy on yesterday that had a bad driver's record. Can't drive. So, Pastor, can you come pick me up? I'm like, man, let me talk to Ryan and get your license right so you can drive. So I know that there's people that need our help in our community, and I want to go on record by saying I would love to see how we could make even a greater impact, because there was an impact in relation to the prosecutor's office and the judges when we developed this program throughout the jail. We had the judges who were actually doing early release for some of those guys that had minimum backgrounds and whatnot, and time cuts for some of those guys who otherwise would have stayed in the jail longer, or even got reduced sentencing for some of the guys that was going over to the prison system. The judges actually considered the fact that because they were doing things positive while they were waiting in jail, that incorporated in their sentencing. So and of course it was through the recommendations also of your prosecutor office saying, yeah, it's okay, let's do it. And of course, you guys were tough on the fact that if people who had already had an opportunity like that, no, you're not going to repeat that. But people who first time you want to give them a shot, you guys did that, and I'm looking forward to trying to kind of strengthen that relationship, you know what I mean, and bring more community partners, because I do have a meeting with the sheriff. I'm going to be talking to him, and then of course the judges. If we can talk to the chief of police and just do some type of criminal justice awareness type of deal together, and come out of there with a stronger way of caring for our community, is what I'm thinking we could look at doing, and because like you say, depleting these families, single mothers trying to raise these kids by themselves, or vice versa, single dad trying to raise, and because of the man or the woman's incarcerated, is really hurting our country, so we got to figure this thing out, and I appreciate you, standing up saying, yeah, let's do this. Now, I got to ask you a question. When you were here with us and we showed you that trailer of that movie, what did you think about that?
I was blown away, and I think the cool part about that movie was, I'm not sure what my expectations were, but I was like, did Steven Spielberg direct this? Like, who did this? I mean, the production on it was incredible, and you can tell it's got a real story to it, that hopefully highlights some of the challenges that young people face out here in these streets. And so I was blown away by the trailer, and I'm looking forward to seeing the rest of that movie. And I know we talked about maybe doing a movie night or something to that effect, and then let's have a conversation afterwards, because I know that film's going to raise a lot of important questions about what we're doing in our community, and maybe what we can do better to help our community.
Absolutely. So the guy who's running the camera right now is the one who actually produced the movie, TJ. He's a star in his own right. I call him Spike Lee, because he, knows how to do all these wonderful things, and he's working right with our church community, Church Indy, to help us as well. We plan to do a series of movies that would encompass dealing with social issues, to try to help get the word out to our young people. Stephen Boyd, he's my son, and he acted in the movie, star character in the movie. And like I mentioned to you before, he was out there in the streets like a lot of us were, like I was. I'll just be Pacific. And he committed his life to Christ, and he works for us, and he's doing an excellent job, And I think that the level of gifts and talents that these young people have that's leaving too early, like you just never know what those, as far as homicides and things of that nature, you just don't know what gift was lost from some of these young people that got killed by the hand of another person through gang violence or violence, etc., and domestic abuse, like you said, on the rise or whatever. We do got to do better at seeing how we can get in front of this. And you have a commitment for me as a pastor, community leader, whatever we can do, we're willing to do it. And we'll be sending you some invitations, like you, the chief of police, some of his sergeants or captains or whatever. We're going to be sending that out, and, inviting the sheriff and, decision makers, some of our pastors and community leaders, the Mothers Against Violence and all of that. We're going to be packing the house out, and we're going to have some nice dinner, and we're going to get our sanctuary together where you can come, enjoy the movie, and we're going to hear from those who would think, we should ask certain questions and whatnot. And our plan is to get it in the theaters where we can play it, as well as I'm talking to the sheriff about it and see if we can actually play it behind bars in the jail while people are locked up. and so they get a better understanding of what happens, when you commit a homicide. Because a lot of times these young people, they don't know, that there's going to be somebody that's going to come and prosecute them. And what's the average time for a person who committed a homicide? Like, how does that work?
Yeah, so the minimum sentence on a murder case is 45 years. The maximum sentence is 65 years. And then, unfortunately, sometimes we see where more than one person loses their life. And so those can be stacked on one another. So you'll see people who join unfortunately, the Century Club, where they're over 100 years in terms of actual sentences. And I think that just serves as a reminder of what the consequences are. And I think one of the things that you touched on was just, I hope people appreciate, like, a split second decision just not only alters the person who is pulling the trigger, but it also alters the life of the person who they're aiming at. And in a split second, just that 1 second decision forever changes the course of 2 lives. And I wish, we could do more to help people understand that and realize that when they're confronted with these, potentially violent situations, there has to be a better way. Not everything needs to result in gun violence. And we see far too many, what I would describe as simple disagreements resulting in people shooting each other. And that's a real problem that we have in our city. And I think it's an area where hopefully we can start to see a little bit of change as it relates to that issue.
Well, yeah, I agree. Now, I want to ask you this because we're getting ready to come to the close of our show pretty soon. And if you want to participate in this broadcast, you can go to my church page, Community Church Indy. We're on live right now. You can type in the chat your concerns, your questions. We have access to what I consider the best prosecutor in the United States. Ryan Mears is with us. So if you want to jump on and give a shout out, if you got some questions, concern, I got my phone right in my hand. I can read it right now. We in real time. You better hurry up and get that chat on. Okay. So here's my thing. I think everyone should come out with your shirts, with your literature, and we need to blanket this city with you being our prosecutor. And if I had a way, I would make it to where you can run and be the prosecutor as long as you want to be. Is what I would do. But right now, we got to look at this current election. What is the best way we can get the word out to help you in your campaign?
Well, I appreciate that. And as we get closer to election time, we're definitely going to need volunteers to help us, get over the hump. The biggest thing for us in Marion County is if people show up and vote, good candidates win. If people don't show up and vote, you never know what could happen. So anything that we can do to help get the vote out, I think is important. I hope people spread the word about what I'm about, just in terms of trying to be fair and treat everybody with fairness. We mentioned not only the driver's license program and the expungements and the Boys and Girls Club and marijuana, but I also think it's important to acknowledge that we started the first ever conviction integrity review unit in the entire state of Indiana, because we understand that the criminal justice system doesn't always get it right. And if we're going to say that systematic issues exist in the criminal justice system, that systematic racism is a real thing, then it's not only what we do looking forward, but also about what we're going to do looking backwards. And so we tried to, we have been looking into those past convictions. We've actually agreed to release a couple of people because of what we believe occurred, and don't necessarily have as much confidence as we would like in those convictions. And I think that's really just, again, sending a positive message to the community about how seriously we take our mission and our objective to make sure that everybody's treated fairly and equally. For those of you who are interested, you can always check us out on our website. It's just ryanmears.com. That's RYANMEARS.com. It's got where we stand on all the issues. It's an opportunity. If you want to volunteer, you can volunteer with us. And I'd love to come on close to Election Day and rally everybody around us and hopefully canvass in your neighborhood and hopefully put out the good word of all the things that we're doing here in Indianapolis to not only make Indianapolis safe, but to make sure Indianapolis treats everybody fairly.
Well, that's great. Now, Maria, I got Maria on Facebook. She wanted me to ask you, Maria Carter. She said, what is the best way, or as far as the need that you might have, what would be the the easiest way, the best way to kind of get going with what you're doing. And if you want us to wait, how long do you want us to wait? We're ready right now. So, but
Uh,
you tell us what you want us to do, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I think as we get closer to the election in November, so I mean, start coming August, September, October, we're really going to be hitting the doors hard, knocking on as many doors as possible. We are doing a little bit of canvassing right now, knocking on doors and trying to, just talk to people in the community and see what's on their minds. But we're definitely going to count on all our friends and neighbors, come September, October, to hopefully put us over the hump and get us elected. If you do want to volunteer right now, again, if you just visit us at ryanmears.com, there's a volunteer link there. You can sign up and we'll reach out to you and let you know what we have going on. And we'd be grateful for any support.
Awesome. Awesome. So, as we bring this thing to a close, I probably got what's my producer saying? I got 3 minutes. Okay. All right. So my thing is, I'm trying to figure out, okay, how is this going to play out once, as far as the redistricting and all this sort of thing? I know we only got a couple of minutes, but I mean, how is this going? I wondered if this redistricting help people feel more empowered, because it seems like we got a lot more people running than normal. Do you think by more people running, new people, that this could kind of also help as you move forward in this new height that you're climbing for how you do your job? Do you think that's a positive thing?
I do think it's a positive thing. Anytime we get more people involved in the political process, I think the community benefits. And like I said, the more people who are talking about the issues, the more people who are involved in the issues, we get better candidates, we get better elected officials. And so I'm excited about the number of people who want to participate in the process. I think that's ultimately good for the community. And so, I'm really excited about all the people who have demonstrated an interest in what's going on with the new congressional maps, with the new House and Senate maps, and with the new City County Council maps that haven't been unveiled yet, but will be shortly. I think all of that interest is good, and it makes for a healthy community. And it also gets more people to the table to vote. For those of you who don't know, Indiana's like second or third to last in terms of voter turnout. And we just need people to show up to the polls. We need people to vote, because if we do that, we get good candidates, and people are more responsive when they know you vote.
Yeah, absolutely. So, any final words that you would like to leave to kind of, because some people, when you say prosecutor, people just get nervous. They just don't know, but, what's your final words that bring comfort to us as you, lead us down this road of helping us be a better Indianapolis?
Well, I just want everybody to know that, I got into public service because I wanted to help people, and I wanted to make a difference. And every day when I go to work, I understand that I serve the community doesn't serve me. And so I always want to hear from the community what's on their mind, what can we do to help, because it's just so incredibly important that we have that connection and we serve the needs of the people who know best, which is the people who live in our neighborhoods. And so I want to continue to have these conversations to make sure that we have a prosecutor's office that is fair and just. And I look forward to working with you and everybody who's out there who has an interest in making Marion County a better place.
Okay. Well, I want to thank you for coming on, man. I tell you what, you got to take your vitamins, man, because you just jumping here, there. I get tired watching you, man. You keep those sneakers moving, man.
Hey, it energizes me to be around people like you who are putting their work into the community, and you can always get up for that. And I'm happy to work with you and partner with you.
Appreciate you. Annette Johnson, which is our Pike Township trustee, she sends her best to you as well. I see her on Facebook. She's saying how impressed she is with you and the work that you have done in Pike Township. So I want to just kind of sneak that in, because she's singing your praises right now.
Yeah, I'll see Annette tomorrow. So I'm looking forward to it.
Absolutely. All right. Well, thank you so much, Brother Prosecutor. Ryan Mears is running again for this political term, and I just want to let you know from what we believe, we support you in your campaign and everything that you're trying to do with Community Church, National Political Network. We support you 100%, and we say Godspeed to you. God bless you, and have a wonderful, wonderful week.
Bye, everybody.
God bless you.
Bye, everybody.
God bless you.